All right. Hey, everyone. So we're with Gael Talk Greenville, and we're back with another interview video this time with Kiva. And she's been very nice and agreed to come on with us and talk a little bit about her background with Gaeilge and what she uses Gaeilge for in her day-to-day life and her job. So let's get into it. So what's a little bit about you? So a brief introduction for you.
Yes, so my name is Caoimhe Ní Chathail and I'm originally from Donegal, so in northwest of Ireland, and grew up in Letterkenny in County Donegal. Went to university in Dublin, and now for the past 4 years have lived in Belfast. So kind of all parts of Ireland up until this point. And as I said, I've been in Belfast for 4 years and really have found this to be the best place for me to be. It's a brilliant city. I live my life through Irish here and I really enjoy living here. I work in media, so in television, in radio and in social media, and all through Irish. I've actually never worked through English, not that I've anything against the language,
Wow.
But there's so many opportunities through Irish, so I've never had to say yes to anything in English. And yeah, just have a really brilliant, as I say, life kind of through Irish. There's a big kind of mantra here, which is Seal Tree Gaeilge Atá. So we want an all Irish life, and really so many elements of my life are through Irish, and there's so many kind of provisions for that kind of life, which is just exactly what I'm after. So I'm really enjoying living here, and as I say, working in media as well. And yeah, that's pretty much me.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I know that can sometimes be a goal, and for some people a very far off goal it may seem, to live through Irish. So yeah, that's really great. So yeah, what's your background with Gaeilge? I know it's different for everybody, especially depending on where you live, what school you go to, and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose growing up in Letterkenny, it's not in the Gaeltacht in Donegal, it's about 45 minutes from the Gaeltacht. But there are a lot of Irish speakers in the town, and we have an ever-growing kind of Nínras, Gaelscoil, Gaelholiste. So that means all kind of education through Irish. So I attended all my school years through Irish, and then also went on to learn to continue with my Irish in university. So I did journalism through Irish. So always had my education through Irish. Also, my mum speaks Irish as well. So she would have spoken to us, at home. My mum's from County Tyrone, which is just the next county over from Donegal. And my dad is from Scotland, obviously originally Irish, though, and moved back then to Ireland, where I was born. But they would have always had a great sense of the importance of Irish and really wanted, their kids to grow up with Irish. So I'm the eldest of 4 kids, and I suppose I'm just very grateful that my parents made the decision to send me to the local Gaelscoil, where I received all my education through Irish. So really, I suppose I learned my Irish through the education system, but it was a success. I think you often hear a lot of sort of horror tales and people giving off about their lack of Irish, but it certainly worked for me. I suppose I was lucky that I was able to attend education completely through the medium of Irish and then continued on into university. But it's always been a really important part in my life, and it maybe kind of when I went to college, I really understood the importance to me and how significant Irish was, and how much kind of respect I had for my language and my culture. And maybe as a child, I do remember my mum speaking Irish to me in the butchers and being so embarrassed that we were out in public and just speaking Irish to me, whereas now I'd be actively encouraging it. So yeah. I think I definitely grew into a deeper appreciation for the fact that I'm bilingual, but always have been, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, and actually you mentioned that, and I actually saw on Twitter just the regular giving out about Irish through school, and it kind of makes me think, especially myself being an educator, when you are in school and something is seen as like an extracurricular thing, especially if it's a mandatory extracurricular thing. Can't talk. But if it's a mandatory extracurricular thing, it does sometimes rub people the wrong way. And I have to wonder but most people I meet that had went to Gaeilge or had all their education through Irish, so that it wasn't this extracurricular thing off to the side that they were made to do, that it was something that was essential to every day, and just them getting through the day, that's the ones that really have success with it, it seems. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's almost, it is that kind of psychological thing as well. You know, when you, like, there's so many subjects. I mean, I didn't particularly like maths, but, you know, we do have issues that, you know, in schools which are, you know, predominantly taught through English, it is just seen as a subject. It's not seen as our language, and it's not seen as something that's going to enrich their lives. It's just seen as another subject to get leaving cert points with. Whereas when you do a school, you get a glimpse, I suppose, of that life, of what, you know, Irish adds to your life. And then, you know, you might be encouraged to kind of carry on with it outside school. Of course, there's loads of people who never attended a Gaelic school who have great Irish and have great respect for it. But it really does depend on kind of even the sort of mindset of the teacher. You know, are they teaching it as just a subject at school, or are they teaching it as a living language? And that's the difference. So there's a lot of work to be done in terms of our schooling, and especially that kind of splitting that subject. You know, there's Conor na Gaeilge, and I'd be in agreement with him, would be in favor of splitting Irish, so that the mandatory part is the spoken Irish, which is of course the most important part, and then there be an optional subject for, you know, the literature and stuff, which people often complain about. And I mean, I would have chosen to do the literature, but maybe not everyone else would have. But just to give people that opportunity, you know, to realize that it is a living language and that it should be spoken, and we should be speaking it proudly. But yeah, it's a common discourse, and it's almost, you know, every time on mainstream media they're talking about Irish, it's just the same old argument. Whereas you know, so much proof, you know, in Belfast and in places all around Ireland, that it is so much more than a school subject. And I almost, I think, feel sorry for those people who look at it just as a subject. You know, to me, it's just such a huge part of my life, and I couldn't imagine, you know, living my life without it.
Yeah, and one of the things I try to get people here is, especially where there's like a lack of people to speak with and practice with, and I have to say I'm still trying to work on that myself. So that's one of the things that's I'm trying to get over, the hurdle of speaking and listening comprehension, even though I can read and write fairly well. But here it's hard to practice. So I tell people who are trying to learn around here that they really need to try to work it into maybe self-talk, like as they're going through their day, and learn everyday vocabulary and things that they can use for everyday situations, and things like that. So yeah, when I heard about stuff like pop-up Gael Talks and stuff like that, so people could go out and, you know, use it in an everyday setting, it was really encouraging. Yeah,
definitely. Those social situations are so important. And like even, you know, in Ireland, there's lots of people who don't get the opportunity to use their Irish, you know, but as you say, I love that idea of kind of narrating your day as you go around. It kind of reminds me of French and me, you know, kind of narrating my day as I went around to practice. So yeah, it is just like any opportunity, but I suppose, you know, there's more opportunities than ever now, you know, and I think we've seen a lot of it during lockdown as well. You know, I would do the social media for the Cultureland here in Belfast. It's an Irish language kind of art centre here, and we've been running classes online on Zoom, and there are people from all over the world taking part, you know, because they have the opportunity to do so. So, you know, I do think there's lots of opportunities and lots of kind of space, even on the internet, to get that, you know, kind of practice in, because it is so important, because really being able to have conversation is the most important part, I think.
Yeah, it really is. Even though it's fun to read the books and other things too, and go on Nos and a couple of other sites and read articles, you know, it's more fun to have that conversation, and it's more than just the textbook full sentences, because when people talk, even though I teach English and teach formal writing, I know that when people talk, they speak in fragments, they speak in, you know, phrases, and it's all broken apart, but it's all intelligible because of context. So you only get that. Yeah, you only get that experience through actually having the conversations and trying it out. So yeah,
definitely. No, it's important, and I do love to talk, so I get why other people would like the chance as well.
Yeah. So with your background in Gaeilge, and it's leading into your career. So what's it like to be a presenter on radio and TV in Ireland?
Yeah, it's really exciting. I suppose it's exciting to be doing something that I've always wanted to do. I always knew I wanted, as a child, I think I wanted to be in Riverdance and on Broadway. But, when that didn't work out, I was like, yeah, okay, TV and radio, that's where I want to be. I have to say, like anything, in TV and radio is very hard work. Like I work crazy hours, long days, no weekends, quite regularly. But if it's something you love, I think, you are going to enjoy it. And I suppose I'm at a stage in my life where I have no responsibilities but myself, really. So I can spend that time, I suppose, working and, getting that experience. The best thing about it probably is how many people and interesting people you get to meet. I mean, you kind of get the opportunity to let other people tell their stories. I particularly love live radio. I don't think there's anything like it. And I do have a radio show on BBC, and it's going to be returning this week, kind of after the summer break. So everything has been like pre-recorded for months, and I'm just so excited to get behind a mic and to be live on the radio. The adrenaline rush is just unbelievable, and it's something I enjoy so much. So much work, as I say, goes into TV and radio. There's so much involved in making that final show. But it's so worth it when you do get all that experience of working with brilliant people, meeting people, telling stories. And I suppose, as I said, everything I do is through Irish. So there is definitely an added element and challenge, I suppose, to that. It is more difficult, definitely, to find your speakers. But when you do, and when you get, that expert in some far, random field of expertise, and they can tell their story through Irish, it's brilliant. It's brilliant to be able to give those people a platform. So I really enjoy it. It's not glamorous at all. It's really not, maybe not what I imagined as an 8-year-old, what being on the TV and radio would be like, but it's just great fun. It's really hard work, but it's so worth it when you see, that kind of final product. And a lot of my friends would work in media as well. So there's that kind of understanding, and there's just a lot of great people, in the area, I suppose. And in Belfast, there's a lot going on. So there are lots of opportunities. And I just really, really enjoy it. And I've been freelance now for actually nearly 9 months. But I mean, the majority of that was in lockdown, but the work didn't stop. I know I'm very lucky because a lot of people in media, just lost their job overnight, whereas there was no stopping the work that was coming in. So it's kind of a big day for me when I say no to a job. So I've had to say it a few times now, and it's not easy, but it just kind of shows the volume of work, and that there's no kind of end to it, which is brilliant. So I'm definitely just really enjoying kind of building up that portfolio and, gaining experience in different kind of fields. And yeah, it's going well so far.
Great. Yeah, some people don't realize all of the work behind the scenes that happens, and how many times something has to be shot if something gets messed up, or, and also, like, just with me starting this channel and a couple of other things, just getting into learning how to edit video. I mean, editing takes hours. If you shoot 1 hour of video, you're probably going to be editing for like 3 or 4.
Yeah, and you might be down to a 3-minute video. It's like it is. Yeah. And I suppose in the kind of for 3 years, when I moved to Belfast for a job, and it was a job as a video journalist with Míle, which is an Irish language news website. And as a video journalist, you do everything. You arrange, so I suppose produce, the shoot, you film it, you edit it, you ask the questions, you write the article, everything involved in that story. And that really gave me an insight into those different jobs. Okay, it was online, it was digital, it wasn't, a blockbuster movie. But that appreciation then when I'm out on a shoot as maybe a news reporter or as a presenter, that I understand what other people's jobs are, and, kind of will work to help them in their job. So those 3 years, doing everything alone was great experience for everything else that I do. So it's not easy, and it takes hours, and, you might be working for months on one half-hour show, but that half-hour show, is worth it if it all goes well.
Yeah, definitely. So that leads us into, do you think there's a difference in the media business when and done through Gaeilge versus, Asperla through English? So, and obviously there's a difference because there are a number of speakers, for English, and there are a number of speakers for Irish. But what kind of differences have you noticed?
Yeah, I suppose just as I mentioned before, kind of the challenge of maybe sometimes finding your your panelists for the radio program, or your guests for the TV show. They're definitely, it is more challenging, but it's a skill, and it's very doable, because that's what we'd always be looking for. There's people in every field who just happen to have Irish, so it's just finding them. So that can be challenging. I suppose in terms of even budgets, the budgets in Irish language TV are so much smaller than English language. We definitely don't get as much funding at all. So you're working on a shoestring, and you're trying to make it work while making it look, as good as English kind of counterparts. But I suppose there's a great community, and there's a great sort of audience who are going to support your projects out there as well. There's a great kind of sense of people are going to watch this because they know the work that's gone into it, and they know they might know some of the people on the show as well, but you always know that there'll be a kind of a supportive community out there. I really enjoy it. I think people who look down on Irish language programming don't fully understand how much work goes into it, and the fact that it's in a minority language. It's so important that we have media in minority languages. A minority language won't be a living language without the normal everyday things such as TV and radio. So it's so important that we, maintain it and keep it, at this kind of thriving point it is. But yeah, I mean, you're always going to come up against challenges, but it's really worth it then when you do see your end product. And I do think, a lot of work goes into Irish language TV and radio, and okay, there aren't as many Irish speakers as there are English, but you see the tweets every day. Like, English speakers are so impressed by the documentaries in TG4 because they are unbelievable. The standard of television that's being made is fantastic. So it's just, that extra push to get the word out there that there are brilliant programs on TV and radio, and they just happen to be in Irish, because I think people have this idea that Irish speakers just talk about Irish. My main focus, on my radio show is to give a platform to young people talking about, their stories, issues that affect young people. But we're not talking about Irish. We're talking about everything else that, people are talking about in the world, yet we happen to be doing it through Irish. It's that normalization that's so important, that you can do anything through Irish, you can talk about anything. So I think just an extra wee push, and to make sure people know that these programs are coming out, and it's all worth it. I know I'm about to present a couple of series and pilots for BBC and TG4, and they're all centered around like kind of topics and issues that are really, I suppose, I don't know if fashionable is the word, but they're really, on topic. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the press around them is. I think we'll get a kind of a far reach because they are such topical issues. So I'm really looking forward to making them, and hopefully attracting kind of, a wider audience than just Irish speakers alone, because that's definitely not, our only demographic. So yeah, it's a challenge, but it's brilliant, and I think there's that added kind of, hurdle to overcome. And so people really work hard when it's through Irish.
And I've noticed that on TG4 and also on YouTube, not on every channel, but it's starting to become more and more, where the videos are able to have good English subtitles and good Irish subtitles. And I think that's opening things up to a wider audience, so that these videos can be consumed by people who speak English as their first or second language, whatever it may be, and that they could also learn a little bit of Irish if they're following along with those captions there. But I think that opens it up, because English people, we watch things with subtitles. We watch movies with subtitles. We watch, there's no point not to watch. There's no point not to watch an Irish.
But there seems to be almost this block. It's like, oh yeah, I'll watch Dark and I'll watch Elite on Netflix, German and Spanish, and they have subtitles. but I couldn't possibly watch an Irish language program. It's like, well, it's the exact same. Irish might not be as exotic a language, but it's, it's the exact same. So yeah, definitely, subtitles and like have obviously made it so much more accessible. And even though like it's so, as an Irish speaker, I'm like trying to cover the subtitles because it's so hard not to read them, even though I understand the program. It does make it so much more accessible to everyone. And if you're happy to watch those Spanish programs with subtitles, then why not Irish as well? So it's definitely, I think we need a wee bit more marketing, to get that message across. Maybe we need a show on Netflix that could help.
Do it.
Yeah, we'll make it.
That would be great. And I think everything's moving in that direction though. And because I think just the last couple years, I mean, when I first started trying to teach myself Gaeilge, I was in high school, I had a book, and that's it. That's all I had. And then literally from that point to now has been an explosion of Irish content everywhere. And I think it's just going to exponentially get bigger. And which I think is great, and it needs to. So that'll be awesome.
Exactly. And it is like it just does show, that it is a living language when a language can move with the times, and that's I suppose a challenge that, minority languages have to face. But the fact that, the normal everyday things we're watching, be it a TikTok, an Instagram account, or a YouTube channel, that they are also available in Irish, that's just so important. And I do remember when myself and my friend Aideen started our YouTube channel, and it was in Irish when we were in first year of college, so 2014. And there really wasn't many channels at all. There was a couple of other ones which were like educational, whereas we were literally doing the Tubby Bunny challenge in Irish. We weren't doing anything educational. It was just for us to make videos and to and to kind of practice presenting, because we really wanted to be TV presenters, and we got a show out of it. It worked. But as well, it was just so interesting to see how much of a niche we had tapped into, and how people were straight away gravitating towards that content, because we always, the human race is always after content. So if you can do something, if you can tap into that niche, and also be in the Irish language, then brilliant, because there's always kind of a hunger for more content, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And even though this channel focuses more on trying to get people the basics of Irish and trying to get them, tips for learning it and access to, different resources for it. Eventually, there may be a spot on our channel where we're just talking about gardening as Gaeilge, or talking about books as Gaeilge. So literature, I mean, all of that stuff might come about eventually. And the more we have that, the better. So
definitely. Yeah, I look forward to
it. So let's talk about, you did some like marches and events with Law Derek. So can you tell us a little bit about what that was, because or is, since it still goes on. But most of the viewers here, and maybe some that are catching this video from elsewhere, may not know exactly what that is.
Yeah, so I suppose the thing to note is that our Ireland obviously is divided into the North and then the Republic of Ireland. And in the North, we don't have any rights or protection in law for the Irish language. So compared to the Republic, where, it's an official language, and there are, even though they are, faulty and not perfect, there are certain, rights and kind of that enshrined in law sort of protection for the Irish language and for the speakers, whereas that just isn't the case in the North. So there's always been calls for regulations and for that rights and respect for the Irish language in the North. And I suppose in 2016, towards the end of 2016, Andram Jarrig started to meet. So a group meeting, and our aim is to achieve an Irish Language Act in the North, which would provide those protections. So in 2017, we had the Law Jarrig, which was when 12,000 people marched to the City Hall in Belfast from the Falls Road. And it was unbelievable just how much of an impact that had on the political discourse. And of course, with the fall of Stormont, so the government in the North, we didn't have a government for 3 years. And one of the main kind of I suppose, points of argument and points that was keeping that government out of government was the fact that there was no Irish language protection, and that some of the parties were in favour of it and some of the parties were against it. So Stormont has come together now. They've been together since January 2020, and as part of their agreement, new decade, new approach, they have said that they will bring in an Irish Language Act. So obviously we are yet to see that. It's been much delay or whatever, but we're still fighting for those rights and respect and recognition. So the Lá Dearg was just such a brilliant day in terms of kind of, I suppose, getting such a massive platform for our cause. There are lots of issues with different rights in the North. We're very almost, I suppose, behind the times, and obviously there's, with the conflict and everything and with the Troubles, there was just huge lack of human rights in the North, and obviously fundamental human rights involve language rights. So the Lá Dearg has been fighting for those rights now for about 4 years, but loads of other groups for that. And yeah, it's amazing the impact. Irish language is really seen as an integral part of a functioning government now, and an integral part of us moving forward and being able to move forward. There's massive sectarianism still. There are massive, issues in that the language is only controversial because people are making it controversial by, denying rights. Irish speakers aren't making the language controversial. They are simply, communicating through their native language, through their language of choice. But it's that denial of rights that makes it controversial. So the fight is very much ongoing. But we've never seen the Irish language so kind of integral and so central in that political discourse. So it's really kind of, I suppose, inspiring. And I think that's I obviously being from Donegal, which is in Ulster, but is not in, the north of Ireland. It's a part of the Republic. I would have been very aware of what was going on in the north, and with my mum being from County Tyrone, I would have known as well, about the Troubles and about kind of the ongoing tensions. But since moving here, I've just realised how bad it is, but also how much that encourages local people and local communities to do their bit and to actively, go ahead with plans and to do things themselves, because they know that no one, in power is going to do it for them. So it's so inspiring to be surrounded by people who are just get up and do it, and that would always, I would have been raised like that. We were very kind of just active and, always involved in a million things. So I think I really just suit this area, they really kind of inspire me. And it means that there are so many things, in this area for us to do through Irish, and so many, elements of our life completely through Irish, because of that get up and go attitude, and because of those people, who have laid the foundations for everything, that has come after. So it's definitely just very interesting to be in the North. And I think maybe people in the Republic sometimes take those rights for granted and maybe don't even understand they have rights. Whereas we're very aware in the North that we have no rights. So it's an interesting conversation, and it's an ongoing debate. But hopefully we'll have an Irish Language Act soon, which no doubt will not be perfect. No doubt, the kind of the fight will continue. But it's just inspiring to be, surrounded by people who are just so willing to go out and to demand those rights,
Yeah. And with things like this, sometimes it can seem like you take, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But as long as there's a forward progression, there's hope that it'll get to a point where it'll be good for the people there, and that it'll finally be what it needs to be. I definitely hope that that's in formation or starting to come together for all of y'all there. That'll be great if they can do something. I know right now with the world mess, everything's delayed. Although, hopefully at some point they'll pick that up and get to doing that for y'all up there.
A lot of issues here, just because of, I suppose, Stormont only being a few months up, and Brexit, of course, is obviously looming over us. But hopefully, an Irish Language Act will happen, and we'll be happy with the outcome.
Yeah, I hope so too. So we talked a little bit about doing things every day as Gaeilge, and that's so important to be able to use it for anything and everything that you can do through English. You can do as Gaeilge. So, I saw that on some videos that you had way back, and even some recent ones. You did fashion, makeup, and style as Gaeilge, especially on your Instagram. You have a lot of that. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us a little bit about that and that interest that you have?
Yeah, definitely. As you say, that kind of importance on, everyday tasks and everyday kind of content through Irish, I think it's so important. So I suppose when I, started out on YouTube, I would have been doing, I would have been watching hauls and watching, makeup tutorials. And so I thought, well, why not do my own through Irish? So I have a number of videos, me kind of trying glossier or, doing a haul of a charity shop. And then, especially on my Instagram in recent times, I have a huge interest in sustainable fashion and the importance of that, the importance for our environment, but also the crack you can have with sustainable fashion. I love going to charity shops and finding absolute gems, and I love, searching on Depop, and would really be an advocate for sustainable fashion. So I think it's so important, to kind of highlight that, but it would be weird for me to do that through English. Just, Irish is just my chosen language. So I like creating, the content that I would like to watch through Irish. I have a series to make now, hopefully in the next few months, if all goes to plan, about sustainable fashion. And I do think it's just such a huge area, of interest to me, and I know to so many other people. For it being Secondhand September this month, I've been definitely putting more of an emphasis on it as well. And there's loads of people out there, and it's funny because you can attract that audience who are looking for Irish content, but also that audience who are looking for fashion content, and kind of get that conversation going. And it's great to see that having a bit of an impact on other people, and then maybe using the terms or sharing things in Irish when they maybe otherwise wouldn't have. So definitely I'm interested in fashion. I'm interested in sustainable fashion particularly, and makeup and everything as well. So if it's something that interests me and I want to make content about it, it feels natural to me, and to make that content through Irish. So it's definitely a huge part of what I do online, I suppose. So it's definitely important to me.
Well, and not to put you on the spot or anything, hopefully not, but what are some of your favorite words for fashion or makeup or something as Gaeilge?
So the Irish for sustainable fashion is fashion in Wunithe. I kind of like that. It's a bit of a long hashtag, but I do like it.
Yeah.
And then let me think. So makeup is obviously smidgey. Smidgey, all depending on your Caoimhe, but in my Caoimhe it's smidgey. And my favorite word, which is not necessarily about fashion or makeup, but which I do believe I coined when I was in college, and now it is everywhere. It's on a GIF, it's on a t-shirt, and the word is buzzal. So I would say I am buzzal about fashion and makeup. So when I was in college and surrounded by all these people from Dublin, they were buzzing about everything. So I started using it kind of ironically, and then I just started to use it in Irish. And now it's everywhere. So I'm going to say I coined that term, even though I know people know I didn't. But I had never heard it used before that. So I'd always say I am buzzal about my newest kind of charity shop find. And I like to call things that I find that are gems. So a shod is a gem, and a shoda is gems. So I like to find lots of shoda. So those would be some of my favorites.
Nice. That's great. And that kind of organic use of the language, especially for, I guess, some people would refer to it as slang, but really and truly, it's probably more, it's more like just, personal expressions, like everyday expressions that kind of work their way in or evolve. So that's really cool.
I find it so bizarre. When people are, I see a lot of this on Twitter and the likes. I seem to see a lot of given out on Twitter, but when people are giving off, about some Irish word they've seen, they're like, oh, that's exactly like the English. That's what a living language does. A living language will take a word from, that's maybe popular in English, and the Irish for it may come from the English, but probably if you think about it, the root of that word comes from some other language, be it or be it, you know. But this like very kind of almost ignorant giving out about how Irish words are so influenced by English it's just not true. You know, it's just a sign of a living language, and it's a sign of a language that's developing because people are speaking it every day. So the likes of Buzzell, yes, it's not, you know, the most beautiful ancient Irish word, but it's just a sign of a living language. So I think it's great when these words are cropping up. And I'm actually balancing the laptop right now on the newest English to Irish dictionary by Padraig O'Meara. And I'm told it's very heavy, I'll be honest, on my knee here, but I'm told it's full of these, you know, new modern words, which are all in folklore, punkaí, and just, it's just so vibrant. It's such an encouraging thing to see that these words are, you know, that we can find the Irish, that we can, you know, get the Irish so quickly now, so accessible to us, but that they're, you know, they're signs of a living language, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah, a bit of an urban dictionary Gaeilge, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've noticed a lot more videos that were put out recently about slang terms and trying to put those out there for learners to kind of incorporate and use. So they're not stuck with just the textbook, you know, vocabulary.
Yeah, and I suppose it depends on, you know, like Cantonment as well, dialects as well. And I mean, I remember the day in French class when the French teacher told us we could say "we" instead of "we," and we all went around saying "we" because we, you know, we're like, oh, it's so casual. It's so, you know, we're just saying "yeah" instead of "yes." So it's the same in Irish. You know, there's always going to be words that are, you know, you maybe wouldn't write, and they're maybe not formal for writing, but that you can throw around in your Codcancha, and you know, it just shows, I suppose, that maybe level of comfort and ease of the language as well when you have those words and phrases.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the other things that you're involved in is the Fringe Culture Festival, Liú Lúnasa. So tell us a little bit about that. Sorry, I have a story.
So Liú Lúnasa just happened about 2 weeks ago. So this was the 6th year of the festival, and it's a Fringe Culture Festival. So it was started here in Belfast by young people, kind of for young people, to kind of give a platform to those elements of the arts and the Irish language that are kind of on the edge and are, you know, fringe culture. So usually involves, you know, quite a few days with loads of events. Obviously, we kind of had to make the decision this year, were we cancelling or were we, you know, going to run some events online, which we did. And for the past 4 years, I suppose the highlight of the festival is the slam poetry competition. So slam poetry is such a, I suppose, an art form that has really grown in recent years, but has been around, you know, kind of started in Chicago in the 80s and, you know, has really developed since then. But it's so well suited to the Irish language because we are the, you know, the island of saints and scholars. I mean, people have been, you know, writing poetry and, you know, presenting poetry, you know, bards and the Shanachie and all of that. It's such part of our kind of, you know, identity and culture. So slam poetry really suits the Irish language, and we're the only Irish language slam poetry competition. So it attracts, you know, kind of competitors from all over Ireland. And it was great this year because we ran it online to see so many new faces, kind of, you know, who would otherwise maybe not have been able to travel to Belfast. They were able to take part because it was in video format. So that's usually the highlight. But, you know, we would run an intensive Irish course. We would always have a panel discussion, which this year was on the environment. Last year was on housing, for example. We would have different concerts. This year we had Break, which is a ska Irish language band from Belfast. You know, so kind of the culture, music, language, discussion, really just, you know, again, not, you know, we wouldn't be talking about Irish, we'd be talking about subjects that are, you know, that are out there that are being discussed anyway, and, you know, bringing different artists and people together. So it's a really great festival to be a part of. I'm really proud of it. I think this is my 4th year being involved, possibly. But it's just a great opportunity to kind of celebrate that vibrancy and that youthfulness that there is in the Irish language community, and maybe, you know, some people are unaware of. So it's just usually a great weekend or week of absolute crack with the best events in Belfast.
So how much do they broadcast that, or where do they usually broadcast that if they do?
So this is the first year it was broadcasted online because we weren't together. So usually it happens in a number of locations in Belfast. So the Cultural here on the Falls Road, or the Black Box in the city centre. So it's usually in person, and a festival that mostly takes place even here in West Belfast. But this year, because we couldn't all come together because of COVID, we had it broadcast live on Facebook and YouTube. So it's kind of done in partnership, I suppose, now more than ever with the Cultural here. So we use their YouTube channel, and then we also were live on Facebook and the likes as well. So we had about 4 or 5 events, and they all went really well. So it was good to see that interest for something online, as well. I think moving forward, people are going to be kind of realizing different ways we can do things, be it kind of half in real life, half online, because it was great that all the world could enjoy it this year. You didn't have to be in Belfast. So it was definitely a big success.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me of some of the distance learning things where some classrooms, I can't remember where it was, but they had interactive screens for students that weren't in the class physically, but those students, their faces, kind of like Zoom, were showing up on the screens, and it was like the screen was in class, but they were at home, or they were away abroad or something like that. And they're bringing that into the classroom so that you can learn at a certain school, no matter where you are. And I think that's getting more and more. And now we're seeing it in social events because we had such a lack of social events for a while. So, yeah.
It really works well, definitely.
So you also had, so you mentioned the music festival as well, right? Or
yeah, so Féile na Galley is a music festival, and this was supposed to be the 5th year, but we had to cancel because of COVID. It takes place kind of the 3rd weekend in I'm trying to think of the English, June. Maith. So usually around then, and it's a 2-night event, so 3-day event. And I suppose it started back in 2015 because of there was supposed to be another Irish language festival, Rave Lodge, which in the end didn't take place. So there was kind of a mad scramble for, well, what are we going to do this weekend when we'd all planned to go to Rave Lodge? So Féile na Galley kind of grew out of that, and it's really grown since. It's an all-Irish language music festival, so loads of different acts, everything from ska to rap, hip-hop, rock, acoustic, all different types of music, all through Irish. Loads of different events like yoga and a panel discussion, usually DJ sets, a family area as well, kind of family camping, family fun day. So I would be involved in the organisation of that, as well as a number of other people. Hannah Rhea and Delny Curran are who started it, but it's in Rathcarn, which is the Gaeltart in County Meath, which is in kind of the middle of Ireland. So it's a very interesting Gaeltart because people were moved there from Connemara. So they would all have a big connection to Connemara, but it was kind of part of Eamon de Valera's government's kind of plans for the Gaeltart, to kind of spread the Gaeltart out to provide, kind of housing and work and the likes in County Meath, to kind of move the Gaeltart out of Connemara, not completely, but to give people an opportunity to live in Meath and to establish a Gaeltart there. So it's a brilliant Gaeltart. There's always so much crack to be had in Rathcarn. It's definitely one of the smallest Gaeltarts, and maybe one of the lesser known, but it's a great place to be and the perfect place for a music festival. So it was so devastating not to have it this year. We did run kind of a YouTube, live sort of sessions with musicians the night we should have been in Rathcarn, but we'll be so excited to hopefully have it next year because it's just so strange for us not to have a summer festival. We're usually camping every second weekend, but this year that obviously wasn't happening. But it's a really great festival, that kind of gives that, gives that opportunity to Irish language bands and musicians to showcase themselves. I attended a Steadfod in Wales a number of years ago, and Wales are just miles ahead of everyone else in terms of the amount of music and the different types of music they have in Welsh. It was unbelievable to be at that festival. But Féile na Galley is definitely going that direction, and it's really, I suppose, encouraging people to continue, with their music through Irish, because there is a platform for them. Obviously there's so much more to be done. We can't, be the only opportunity these musicians have in the year to play. But it's just great, and it's great to see it grow as well. And to be walking around now at this festival we run and not recognize everyone is mad. There's so many people we don't know. It's not just our friends anymore. It's such a huge crowd. So it's really, really good, and it's great crack to to be involved in the organisation. It's a lot of work for sure, but again, the enjoyment of that weekend is definitely worth it.
That's great when something like that's put together on a small scale suddenly grows and just kind of organically becomes a regular part of the year, a regular part of people's schedules. That's great. So we're going to wrap up here just a little bit, but where can people find you and your content? I know you have accounts kind of everywhere, and I'll try to link as many of those down below as well, but where can they find you?
Yeah, I suppose my name online is Caoimhe Chats, as I do like to chat. So that's kind of where you can find me, especially on Instagram, Twitter. I do have a YouTube. I haven't uploaded in a while, but there's a good catalogue of videos there as well. And if you're interested maybe in more Irish language content, there's also the channel I have with my friend Aideen called TussaTube. Again, we haven't uploaded in a while. So busy with our everyday jobs, but again, kind of a good source of content if anyone wanted to watch. But Caoimhe Chats on Instagram and Twitter particularly. And I do love to chat about anything and everything, and majority of the time through Irish as well.
Awesome. So I'll put a lot of the links to some different things we talked about that you were involved in and everything down below. So all of that will be in the description of the video. And just go raibh míle maith for coming on with us and talking with us. That's been great.
No, go raibh míle maith. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much for asking.
All right. And anyone who is watching this video and catching it, if you like this content or want to see more content like this, you can subscribe and hit the bell notification to be notified when we upload videos. Interview videos like this I try to premiere on Saturdays, but it won't be every Saturday. It just depends on when we can get people in to record and talk with us and work around, our schedule, their schedule, and everything. So if you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you in another one. Slán.